His reputation preceded him. Chapter 1, Dog Park. I don't remember ever really not knowing Brian, in that as soon as I met Alice, I began to hear tell of him. She and I met when our girls were in Dr. Penny's class together at John Eaton, and Alice and I would meet halfway between our houses to walk our dogs at Roseland. Our dogs could not, frankly, have cared less about one another, but Alice and I got along, so we almost immediately began telling that one particular form of the tall tale that's known as the husband story. So what if the real people she and I happened to be married to might have preferred to not become more and more outlandish characters in these fables we were creating? If Jack and Brian hadn't wanted to be talked about, they shouldn't have married writers. I remember not only hearing about Brian and his comic misadventures, but so totally identifying with his complete and utter right-brained way of coming at the world. His magical ability to lose things, for instance, and how he could propel physical objects away from himself with the force that is whatever is the opposite of gravity, and to do this as he traveled, so he had things that he'd once owned strewn from coast to coast across our entire nation. I admired Brian's clothes-flinging thing and how he'd leave his well-packed suitcase on the bed at home, going off for a court date in a faraway city, then leave his hang-up with the flight attendant as he changed planes in Chicago, and so he'd need to make his customary stops at the Walmart or at the 99-cent store or the Target in this city to buy underwear so he wouldn't show up sockless in some maybe humorless judge's chambers. I totally got the scatteredness, the preoccupied manner, which to me meant that Brian was concentrating on whatever is more essential, such as saving the life of Terry Williams, who'd been condemned to death for the crimes of being poor and black and drunk and mentally retarded, and so had sat on death row in Virginia for 13 years before the case finally came before the Supreme Court. I too at once had a casual interest in becoming a lawyer, and I'd have wanted to become exactly the kind of lawyer that Brian is, brilliant when it matters, and otherwise not particularly interested in all life's more itsy details. In my case, of course, I was so distracted from detail that I forgot to actually apply to law school. And I'd heard from Alice about Brian's hypographia, his keeping contemporaneous record of what is now almost literally an important century by writing in his journal every single day since he was 14 years old. I also admired his child-rearing advice, which Alice shared with me and which I'd then turn around and remind her of as one or the other of us was flipping out over the miseries of one or another of our children. Brian's advice was hard to fault. It was succinct, and it went like this: ignore them.